Hello, everyone. Can you let me know in the comments if you can hear and see me well? Let's do a quick sound and video check. I can see your comments already. Hi, guys. Thank you so much for joining. Just let me know in the comments if you can see and hear me well. Just want to make sure that we're all set up and good to go. Yes? No? Okay. Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, there's a bit of a delay, so sorry about that. And thank you for letting me know. Hi, everyone. Welcome. How's everybody doing? I hope you guys are doing well, staying safe, and hopefully in a great, super productive mood because we have a really interesting topic for today. And while some more people are still joining us, I'll just start with telling a little bit about who I am if you don't know me or if you don't follow me on social media. So I'm a career coach and LinkedIn trainer. And what I do every day is I help people market their professional stories, whether it's on paper, such as their resume, on LinkedIn, or even in person, let's say during job interviews. And all of that, I do that to help them get hired faster. If you've seen me at all on LinkedIn or on other social media platforms, you know that I put out a lot of content, especially on LinkedIn. And I also have a YouTube channel. And I talk a lot about ways how you can make your job search easier and finally get hired for that awesome, fantastic job that you truly want and also deserve. So for our agenda for today, we're talking about presenting yourself and pitching yourself for a job. It's definitely one of the trickiest topics for a lot of job seekers at all levels of career and work experience. So today I'll cover the 3 golden rules of pitching yourself in a job interview. So if the question, tell me about yourself, has ever made you feel stressed or uncomfortable, this is definitely a live stream for you. So stay with me and keep watching. Also, we'll go over an answer formula that'll make it so much easier for you to pitch yourself and talk about yourself in a context of a job opportunity. And also, there is the awesome bonus that we have just for you guys who are joining me today. I'll tell you how you can enter a contest and win a free LinkedIn profile review from me that will be featured on my YouTube channel as well. Because I already did a video where I was reviewing some real LinkedIn profiles, and it proved to be so hot and popular that I want to make another one and help you guys learn from practical and strategic feedback on real LinkedIn profiles. So rather than theorizing in general, I'll take 2 specific profiles, 2 examples for those 2 winners, lucky winners, and I'll record a video and publish it on my YouTube channel reviewing your LinkedIn profiles. And by the way, if you haven't yet subscribed to my YouTube channel, I highly recommend it because the more you guys show me what kind of content you want, what topics interest you, the better videos I can create and produce for you. So it's kind of a 2-way street. Thank you everyone who is joining. I can see your comments already. We have people from different cities. That's so cool. Thank you for finding the time to join me today. So, talking about yourself in a context of a job interview. Anyone ever found it to be tricky or challenging? How does it usually make you feel when someone starts an interview asking you to tell a little bit about yourself? Let me know in the comments. Do you enjoy talking about yourself? Does it make you feel uncomfortable? What's it like for you? I really want to hear from you guys. So let me know in the comments. And thanks for your feedback, by the way. I'm happy that you can hear and see me well. Also, if you've ever struggled to talk about yourself, don't be shy and let us know in the comments because you guys are not alone. I work with clients and job seekers every day, and trust me, talking about yourself it does not get easier with experience. It does not get easier with years. It's just challenging for everyone. So any thoughts on, how much you enjoy or hate talking about yourself? Okay, I feel uncomfortable trying to sell myself. Hard to keep it short and to the point. Definitely uncomfortable. Well, we do have some people who like this question, so that's great. Welcome. Hopefully, after today, you'll enjoy it even more. Makes me nervous and I end up rambling. Oh, I hear you. Definitely been there. I'm comfortable speaking about my achievements. That's awesome. Good for you. I enjoyed, but I would like to know how to do it more catchy. Yes, Monica, that's exactly why we are here today. More people who love talking about themselves. That's great. I'm so happy that so many of you actually do enjoy the process. So hopefully after today, you can do it even better and impress the interviewer within the first few seconds, and that'll get you more job offers. So whenever we're talking about job interviews, probably there isn't much that you can really be sure or certain about. But if there was one thing that you can totally be 100% sure about, it's that you will be asked to tell about yourself in the very beginning of your conversation. And it doesn't matter if we're talking about a preliminary phone screen, or if you're sitting down with your prospective boss, or if you're already in a final round talking to the CEO and kind of making some final tweaks and decisions about your job offer. Regardless, everyone, literally everyone, and not just in the context of a job interview, will ask you to introduce yourself. And that's kind of your time to take the stage. And the way you're able to summarize your story in those very few seconds of the conversation or of the interview will pretty much determine how the rest of the conversation goes. So it's very easy to make or break the entire conversation within those few minutes. So I know that you guys probably already have a feeling that if you mess up answering this question, it's really hard to recover from. So hopefully that's not going to happen after today. And we'll make sure that you know exactly how to pitch yourself effectively with confidence and without it sounding fake or without any kind of awkwardness. And, whenever I do mock interviews with my clients, I always lead with this question as well. And surprisingly enough, time after time, it proves to stump every single one of my clients and of job seekers out there, regardless of how much or how little experience you have. Somehow it's always super tricky and challenging to kind of see yourself with the employer's eyes rather than your own, and know how to pick those relevant pieces of your entire professional history to make sure that you're presenting yourself and putting your best foot forward. And the problem with the question, tell us about yourself, is that it's open-ended, right? You might be thinking, well, what exactly do they want to hear? How am I supposed to pick out what to share out of my entire life story at this moment? And should I talk more about my personal, the personal aspects, such as my interests and hobbies, to make it a little bit more engaging and personal? Or should I only stick to work stuff? So there's always this dilemma. And again, hopefully after today, you'll know exactly what you need to do. So let's figure this out together. Whenever someone asks you, and again, we're talking about in the context of a conversation with a prospective employer, a recruiter, hiring manager, if they're asking you to tell about yourself, what are they really asking? What do they want to know? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. So again, there is no wrong answer here, guys. We are here together to learn and share our experiences. So what are your thoughts on this? What are they really asking when they're telling you, to tell a little bit about yourself? Yeah, I can see that there are some of you already asking in the comments, what are they really asking you to say? So now is the time to figure this stuff out. I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on this. So what are they really asking when they are saying, hey, tell me a little bit about yourself? What can I bring to the table? Okay. How do your skills and experience align with the job role you're applying to? Great. What are you passionate about? What lights you up? Okay, those are some really good thoughts. Anything else? What else do they really want to know? Remember, this is the beginning of your conversation. So potentially that's one of the first interactions that they're having with you ever. They may have only communicated with you over email. They want to know if your personality fits their organization and needs. That's a good point. So basically kind of already trying to determine whether you're the best fit for the job. Why are you a fit here? Your value. They want to see if you're prepared for an interview. That's a good point. That's true, though. They do want to know if you're prepared within the first few minutes. They would like to learn if you're a good fit for the applied position. Yeah, basically, a lot of you guys are already hitting some of the really good points here. So whenever a recruiter or a prospective employer asks you to tell them about yourself, what they really mean is, well, now you have around 30 seconds or so, maybe 30 seconds to 1 minute to sell yourself to me. Tell me why I should be interested. And you might be thinking, well, if they invited me to have this conversation, clearly there is something that interested them. So, and that's probably true. But now when they're asking you to talk about yourself, that's them giving you a signal to tell why you think they should be interested. So what you think is different or stands out about your profile and makes you a great fit for the job. So a lot of the times, unfortunately, people start in the wrong direction, and that's where the entire conversation goes completely the wrong way. So the most common mistakes usually are when you're starting with your entire autobiography, with, starting with your high school days. Again, nobody has the time to listen to your entire life story, and your entire life story does not really answer the question, what makes you a good fit for this role and this company. Other people start simply retelling the information from their resume. Of course, there will be a certain overlap because your resume summarizes certain key facts from your professional history. But at the same time, the person who has invited you for the interview, they have already at least had a quick look at your resume. So they've seen already the information that is on there. They want to hear it from you. So simply saying the exact same things that are written on your resume is not going to do the job because, well, they can read those things. And another thing that, again, always goes wrong is people thinking that if they give more information, that's going to make things better. So what ends up happening is you share irrelevant details that truly have nothing to do with why you're the best possible candidate for this job. So hopefully, if you guys ever made those same mistakes, or if you thought that one of those things would be the right thing to do, unfortunately, that's not going to get you to make that amazing first impression that will truly engage the other person, your interviewer, and get them excited about, learning more details from your background and your history. So what are the golden rules for creating a compelling answer? So rule number 1, you need to make sure that you're tailoring your response to the role and the company. So although, you might think that, well, they're asking about yourself, right? That's in the question. Tell us about yourself. So even though it does sound like the question is focused around you, what they're really asking is what makes you a great candidate for this specific opportunity at this organization. So you shouldn't wait for them to ask you directly, hey, what do you think makes you a great fit? If they're asking that question again, that means that initial impression that you created with your tell me about yourself answer just didn't do the job. Because hopefully after that answer, they will already have a pretty good idea, and the questions would be more focused around, can I have more details? I want to learn more. I want to have more information. So in order for you to be able to tailor your response every single time, you'll want to spend some time analyzing the job description really well, researching the company, and also figuring out how you can tell your story in a way that would make it crystal clear why you are interested and motivated for this specific job, and what you bring and how what you bring to the table aligns with what that company is looking for. So let me give you an example to kind of illustrate that point. So let's say we're looking at the job description and it talks a lot, or repetitively, it talks about you having to manage a team globally. So the job implies that you'll need to work internationally. So if that seems to be like the key common thread throughout the job description, and it's mentioned more than once and seems to be truly critical for someone to be successful in this job, that's what you need to highlight in your answer to tell us about yourself. Not just the fact that you have been a manager for a certain number of years. And not just the fact that you've been managing, let's say, large teams, but the fact that you've had that international management exposure. So that's just one possible example of how you can make sure that you tailor that answer to each and every opportunity. Now, you might be thinking, well, in that case, so every single time I need to prepare a different pitch. Pretty much. So you might have a common structure, and that's the answer formula that I'll be sharing a little bit later once we cover the main rules for a compelling answer. But at the same time, you always need to customize that structure to make sure that it resonates with this new audience that you're talking to. So again, tailoring your answer to the specific role at the specific organization. That's number one. So number two, focusing on what makes you different. And that's one of the biggest mistakes that people make when they're trying to present themselves. And that actually goes not just for job interviews, but for resumes and LinkedIn profiles as well, is that people think, you remember all of those cool buzzwords that sound compelling, and that, well, apparently everybody's asking for attention to detail, and they're asking for team players, and they're asking for written communication skills. So people just hang on to those keywords, believing that, hey, if I hit those points, that's what's going to make me look good. So unfortunately, that's not the case, because if they have selected you to have an interview, they've also selected some other people, and that already means that those people satisfy all of the minimum requirements for the job. So if you want to really make a great and successful first pitch to start your conversation on the right foot, what you need to make sure that you're talking about what sets you apart. And those generic things that everybody talks about is not that. So whenever you are trying to figure this stuff out, think about a hypothetical scenario. So let's say you're competing against 100 other candidates, and imagine that all of them are equally qualified. That means that all of them have satisfied the full list of minimum job requirements that is mentioned in the job description. So they have the credentials, they have the education, they have the industry knowledge, they have number of years of experience, whatever it is, right? And so you're competing against those people, and you need to figure out what makes you different from all of those 100 people. What extra, or what something that is above and beyond that list of minimum requirements that you have that makes you a great fit for this job. And I know that it's a very complicated question. That's the same question that I always ask every single one of my clients. And trust me, it's very rare when I hear an answer that is, detailed enough, that is compelling. Usually people get lost because most of the time, let's be honest, we don't really know what makes us different, or at least it's hard for us to figure it out because we're not objective. We kind of look at things from the inside, and that makes it really challenging to know what makes you different if you look at it from the bigger picture perspective. So if you don't really know an answer to that question, trust me, you're not alone. And that's when it makes sense to connect with your former colleagues or the people who know you from your work environment, maybe not at this current job if you don't want your current employer to know that you're actively pursuing other opportunities. Maybe it's your former colleagues, your former manager, your clients from before, or your current clients. And just ask them, whether you're having a conversation over email or you give them a quick phone call, and just ask them, hey, what do you think I'm known for? What are the things that you associate when you think about me? And that's how you get an external perspective, and people will point out certain things that might seem super mundane or super routine to you from the inside, but from the outside, they actually could be your differentiating factors. So again, when you're trying to think about, pitching yourself or answering the question, tell us about yourself, you cannot simply list the skills and qualifications that are mentioned in the job description and think that that'll do the job, because that's exactly what all of the other people are going to do. And our objective is for you to not do what everybody else is doing, because that's the only way how you can get a different result. So, for example, what are some of the things that we could you could think of. So maybe it's your experience in an industry that is closely related to the one that you're currently targeting, and that exposure to that related industry allows you to have a much deeper understanding of the target audience or the target market of the company. So that's one example. Another possible example could be your unique ability to kind of visualize the big picture and understand how to move all the different smaller parts to make the entire thing work. So it's not that you're just sitting in one silo and looking at just one part of your job that you are mostly focusing on, but you're kind of looking at it more broadly and capturing the bigger picture and figuring out the whole chain of events in terms of how your job impacts other stakeholders or other people who are working towards the same shared common goal or result. So again, those are just a couple examples, but I hope you're getting my point. The most important thing to remember, it's not about mentioning the skills that are simply listed in the job description. It's about mentioning a couple of truly like key selling points or key competitive advantages that you have that make you different, not that make you sound like exactly the same as 100 other people who applied for this job. And that brings us to the third golden rule to a successful self-pitch. And that is keeping it professional, but adding a little bit of passion to it. So when I'm saying that you need to keep your answer professional, that means that, yeah, mostly you're kind of sticking to the work-related stuff. So it's not that we're going into the details of all of your hobbies and interests and what you do on your personal time. But at the same time, keeping your answer professional shouldn't stop you from shedding some light on, let's say, why you're passionate about the work that you do, or why you are interested in this specific company, even if it means that you'll be diving into slightly more personal territory, because that's okay. Again, adding a little bit of a personal touch without going into too much detail, again, can help you tell a little bit more of a story rather than sound like someone who learned a lot of technical things by heart. Because at the end of the day, people don't want to talk to robots. They want to talk to other human beings. And that means that you are allowed to tie in certain elements of your personal story that have made you who you are today. I can give you one example. So it's kind of an interesting one. One of my former clients, he was looking for a business development role in the IT sector. And interestingly enough, he had a background as a chef and experience opening a whole bunch of top performing restaurants all over the country, or at least all over the city. And at the first glance, it seems, well, what does that background of him working as a chef and working in a restaurant environment, what does that have to do with him being good at business development in IT? Probably, you would think that not much. But at the same time, he spent such a considerable number of years doing in that previous part of his life, right? So being a chef and opening restaurant businesses. And that has actually given him a unique perspective that not many other people that work in business development in IT have. And that is a relentless focus on maximizing customer experience. So he kind of carried that forward into his new, when he switched careers, he carried that experience forward, and he made sure that whatever he was doing in terms of pursuing the growth objectives and sales targets and coaching teams to be better at sales, he was always making sure that he was the advocate for the customer. And that is something that improves user experience. It improves client relationships. It grows repeated business. Like, there's a whole bunch of critical business outcomes that result simply from someone being so committed to focusing on the customer and the customer experience, on that relationship building element. So you see, that's one of the examples of how something that seems completely irrelevant at a first glance can actually add that slight personal touch. So you're kind of introducing that idea that, yeah, I spent a considerable part of my life outside of this industry, outside of this world. But at the same time, there are certain things that are transferable from that previous role to the new one. And that is especially important for those of you who have more diverse experiences, right? So there might be some people who have very niche focus and they've been just growing vertically within that niche. Or there could also be people who've been kind of, sometimes you feel like you've been all over the place. You've worked in different industries, maybe even in different capacities and business functions. But when you're talking about yourself, if you simply list that, oh, first I did X, then I did Y, then I did Z, then I did something else, and those things are completely unrelated, it might sound to the other person who is meeting you for the first time, let's be realistic, to them it might sound like, whoa, wait a minute, that person is lacking focus. What's happening here? So it's your job to find out that common thread and link all of those experiences like little puzzle pieces, put them together, and make sure that you're explaining how all of that aligns, how all of those dots connect into one story, and how it makes you a better fit for this new gig or this new opportunity that you're currently pursuing. So again, keeping your answer professional doesn't mean that you cannot introduce some elements of your personality, of your passion, of your personal story into it. Just make sure that you don't go all the way to the personal territory, because at the end of the day, we're talking about a job context. So nobody's really interested in all of the details of your hobbies and personal interests. Okay, now let's talk about the formula for a successful answer. So how can you kind of create, and I know, generally I'm not a big fan of templates or anything like that, but I know that for many of you, interviewing is a relatively new thing, right? Maybe you've been employed for quite some time and you didn't need to interview really, or you didn't need to be that actively job searching as you need to be today. So let's face it, your interview skills might be rusty. So to get that whole thing going, you need some kind of a master template or something, some kind of a structure that you can work around on, or you can kind of customize every single time. And that'll just make it so much easier, and you wouldn't be faced with that, huge awkwardness and like, oh my God, I need to talk about myself again in a different scenario for a different company, maybe even in a different industry. How do I do that? So the structure, again, mostly I like to focus on 3 main winning points. So first comes, you need a strong opener. That's your way to kind of introduce yourself, because again, you're meeting these people for the first time. Well, it could have been in person, but now it's way more likely that it's going to be over Zoom or Skype. So you'll have more like a video conversation. Still, those people have never seen you in person, so they don't know you. You need to kind of give them an overview, a summary, a general introduction. Usually those are things like your current or close to current position, your like an overview of your experience, and some of your key credentials. So I know that it's not super fun and not super exciting, but it kind of gives, like, it adds that flow to how you introduce yourself, and then you can start pitching after that. So it could be something like, let's say if you work in sales, you could say, well, I'm a sales executive and I've worked more than 10 years with global consumer brands in Fortune 500 companies, something like that. Or in my case, I would say, hey, I'm a career coach and every day I work with job seekers to help them get hired faster. So for someone who, let's say, has no idea where I come from and what I do every day, that kind of introduces that idea and gives them an overview, and they're like, okay, I get it. So now I want to hear more. And then when they're ready and they're primed to hear more, that's when you start with your competitive advantages. So like I said, you don't have that much time to stall them or to go over some generic things, because those things are not going to sell you for that job. You'll have the time to talk about the generic stuff and how you meet all of the minimum requirements. This is the time to pitch why you're different, why you're better, why you're above average. So talking about competitive advantages. And usually I advise to pick, your top 2 or 3, depending on how much time you might have or depending on how complex that information is, right? So that depends on your experience, your how far along you are in your kind of career path and things like that. And once you mention each one of them, you immediately follow up with how that skill or that advantage can add value to the business. So immediately backing it up with either some past accomplishment, again, not a detailed example, not a detailed story that'll take 5 minutes to talk about, but just a general overview of how that has had real business impact. And the way to transition from that first opener where you kind of gave a general overview and introduced yourself to this part of your pitch, you could say, hey, I think the two most important things to know about me are the following. Number one, number two. Or you could say, my coworkers and my colleagues know me for this. Or you could say, I'm most known for. So any of those things, whatever feels more natural to you, or you could even come up with your own kind of a link between those two parts. But my point is, get to those competitive advantages right away. And finally, number three, the third kind of closing element of that formula is why you're interested in this opportunity. So that way we've talked a little bit about, who you are. We've talked about your past, because that's the only thing that we can use as a proxy for your future accomplishments, right? Or the kind of value that you can add to this new opportunity. And now we are finishing this off with your focus on the future, like your next step, right? Why you're interested in this specific next step and how it, how you feel about it being part of your next big thing, let's say. So basically the stuff that we covered today, we covered what not to do, right? So don't start with your entire professional history. Don't go all the way to high school and your entire autobiography. That's not the time for that. And feel like start feeling okay with dropping any irrelevant information, because I know that sometimes we feel so attached to certain parts of our experience that it's hard to just say they don't care about this, because at the end of the day, it's not just what matters to you, it's also what matters to the person you are talking to. And that's kind of the second, I guess, biggest takeaway from today, is that the core of your answer to a question, tell us about yourself, which seemingly sounds like it's focused around yourself, is not you. The main focus is what the interviewer wants to hear from you at this point. And if you think about it, first it seems a little bit controversial, right? Wait, they are asking me about myself. Why am I supposed to talk about what they care about? But at the same time, if you think about it, what's the rule of any good conversation? So if you're trying to, and for those of you who ever worked with, other people in teams or who have ever worked with clients, you'll know what I'm talking about. When you're trying to establish that initial rapport, do you think you're going to do it better if you talk about what you care about, or if you actually find out what the other person cares about and start your conversation there? Usually it's the second one, because it gets the other person to open up and feel like you kind of already pay attention to them and you appreciate them and you care about them in a certain way. And that's why the conversation evolves more around them rather than yourself. So that's, I haven't invented that. That's just common sense from, making conversation with people, and especially, let's say, when you're making small talk with people as well. So that same rule applies to a job interview, because guess what? A job interview is also a conversation like any other. So it also means that if you want to be a great interviewee, you need to be a great conversationalist. And a great conversationalist builds their conversation not around what they want to say, but around what that other person cares about and what they want to hear. So again, you don't need to wait for them to ask, hey, why should we hire you? Or what makes you a great fit for this job? Answer that stuff right away in your answer to the tell me about yourself. Because the main reason why you're having the interview in the first place is to determine whether you make a great fit for this job. So why, waste time talking about some other things if you can get right to it? So think of it this way. Telling them about yourself is kind of your ultimate chance to convince them that they gave you that phone call or they emailed you with that interview invitation for the right reasons. And finally, I guess one last thing to take away from this is focus on what sets you apart and not on those generic minimum requirements that are listed in every single job description. And like I mentioned to you before, if you have no clue what that is, that's okay. So that just means that it's time to start asking someone who has worked with you what they think. Your leaders, your colleagues, your clients. Ask them to describe you. Ask them, what kind of associations they have with you. Or another option here is to consider doing some interview coaching, because again, part of that would be to get that story together, to nail down your key selling points and understand how you can present and highlight those things that make you different. So again, if you have no clue what that is, it's just time to do some digging and to kind of start thinking about it. But usually, or very often, it will be very hard to do on your own. So that's why I always recommend to practice that stuff with someone or talk to other people to get as many external perspectives at this point as you can. Asking your friends or family members may not help much. I mean, they could know you a little bit differently compared to how you know yourself, but chances are they haven't really seen you in your normal work environment. So it makes sense to reach out to people who have actually collaborated with you in a work setting rather than just from your personal life. Okay. Any questions, you guys? I know that it's been a while since I looked at the comments, so let's see. Okay, so Kathleen asks, can you please restate the 3 steps in the structure? Yes, sure. So step number 1, you need an opening statement. That means highlighting your position, kind of summarizing your experience and giving an overview of your credentials. Step 2, you dive into those competitive advantages and you follow each one of them. So let's say you pick 2 and you follow each of them with some, what they call social proof, right? So something to back it up in terms of how that had real business impact. And step 3, you close it off with why you're interested in this next opportunity. Why do you feel like that's a logical, exciting next step for you in your career? So those are the 3 things in the structure. Okay, any other questions? Okay, somebody's saying that they're making notes. Yeah, that's great, you guys, of course, because at the end of the day, it's great to have some kind of a structure to come back to anytime when you feel lost or you feel stuck or you feel stressed. It's always good to go back to those core things and kind of just start all over. Take a new piece of paper or start a new notes file on your cell phone and just start from scratch. Start thinking, what are the key things that I want to highlight when I'm talking about myself or kind of pitching myself? Okay. If you have questions, guys, now is a great time. I'm just looking through the comments. Okay. Yeah, so Bob wrote professional and life accomplishments. Yes, so like I said, introducing those more personal elements without going into too much of a personal territory. Ashley's asking, will you have a link available to watch again? Yes, the recording will be saved on my LinkedIn profile and also on my YouTube channel. By the way, you guys, if you are not yet subscribed to my YouTube, I'd really encourage you to subscribe. I share videos every single week, and when you subscribe, that's a signal to me that you're interested, that content brings you value. And I've heard so many success stories of people who have just been following my advice from my videos, just applying that to their job search and getting hired and getting jobs that they really wanted. And I think that's amazing. So who knows, the next success story could actually be yours. Oh, and by the way, yes, I haven't forgotten. I promised you to list what you need to do to win a free profile review. I'll just take a couple of questions and we'll do that, of course. Okay, great question from Mira. What are some competitive advantages that speak out to you? So I'm not sure if you're asking about in terms of my own perspective, but it's not, the point is not what stands out to me personally. The point is what stands out to your employer. So it could be, it could be a combination of different things. And usually that's like, if we're getting like totally philosophical about this, usually those things happen as an intersection between the different things that you've done. So it's very rare, not saying that it's impossible, it's just very rare when that kind of a big, huge differentiator or a huge competitive advantage comes from just focusing on one thing. Because if you focus on one thing, yeah, you know it like inside and out, you know the ins and outs of that one aspect. But so do other narrow focused specialists. And if you're competing against those people, well, is that everything you bring to the table? So usually, for those of you who have more of a diverse experience, I would suggest look for intersections of different things that you've done. They could be intersections of business functions or different departments or different industries or markets. Like those usually are those are the things that give you some, like a little bit of an extra perspective that is different, that is not an average scenario. So those are usually things, I mean, again, I don't want to go into too much detail because that's a topic for like a whole other 1 hour webinar or live stream or something. But just to give you an idea, that's probably one of the things, like one of the areas where you can start looking. And the other area where you can start looking for competitive advantages is thinking about the parts of your job that you truly enjoy. And even for those of you who are, not doing the kind of work they really love, and well, that's a pretty common scenario, unfortunately. But there's still there. I'm sure there are certain parts of that job or of that type of work that you feel okay about, or seem easy to you, or seem natural. So you kind of don't mind doing them, and you sometimes even like doing them. And for those of you who are more excited about the work that they do every day, well, obviously that'll be much easier to answer. So when you start kind of looking at those areas, usually the things that you like the most are the things that you are best at, and those usually are connected to your competitive advantages. Okay. Another question from Ashley: how long should your tell me about yourself pitch be? I would say aim for anywhere between 30 seconds to 1 minute. I wouldn't go over 1 minute because if you manage to engage the interviewer, if they're interested, they'll ask you for more information. Less than 30 seconds is a bit like it's just not enough, because again, it's kind of, I mean, the term elevator pitch originates from the idea that you only have about 30 seconds to introduce who you are. If you're talking about that kind of scenario, yeah, definitely 30 seconds would be kind of your max. In a job interview, people usually give you the stage for a little over than 30 seconds. So I would say 30 seconds to 1 minute is something to aim for. And that's, by the way, I'm glad you asked this question, Ashley, because that kind of leads us to another important point: practicing your answer out loud. I'm not a big fan of learning stuff by heart, so I don't usually recommend that people do that. But at the same time, when you're just preparing, let's say you're taking some notes or you're just thinking things over, things usually sound so great in our heads. And then somehow when we start saying them out loud, usually that's where things go wrong. So the only way to tackle that is to practice out loud. And it doesn't mean that you are just repeating the exact same thing over and over again. Even if it's every time it's a little bit different, you're still hearing yourself. You can even record yourself on audio or video if you want to take it like one step up. And that way you get an external look at, your entire body language, your gesturing, your entire kind of presentation, which is even better. But practicing out loud also helps with timing. So you might think that, oh, I wrote this much in my notes, that'll just be 30 seconds. But then when you start talking, oops, it's 3 minutes, and that's too much. So practice out loud. A question from Carol Ann: what makes you come across as authentic in an interview? That's a really good question. I would say number one is being calm and confident. And I know that when, let's say, when if you get really nervous when you are in an interview, that's kind of easier said than done, huh? But at the same time, that kind of, when you see that the person is pretty calm and they know what they're talking about, that comes across as authentic. Because when you're nervous, even when you're telling the truth and you're telling the exact things that happen, so it's credible and you know that that's the right thing to say, because you're nervous, the way it sounds, you lose that credibility right away. So I would say authentic kind of goes together with that calm and confident manner of being able to talk about yourself. And that comes with practice. So the good news is that, like any other skill, like mastering a new language or mastering a new software, that's something that can be learned and mastered through practice. So that's number one. Number two is, being okay with your gesturing. So again, going a little bit more towards the body language area, because when sometimes people get so like they think it's better that I just block my hands and don't do anything, and that's when the whole impression is not authentic. Or the opposite, they gesture so much that it's also comes across as not being authentic. And that is something that video, like recording yourself on video, is so helpful. I cannot stress this enough, because ever since I started doing videos as part of my business and sharing videos and doing these kinds of live streams, it does wonders to how you see your communication style from the outside and how you balance that body language. So I highly, highly recommend it. And the third one, in terms of authenticity, I would say, again, not learning things by heart, because any good interviewer can hear that robotic manner of just saying things every single time, the exact same pitch. But at the same time, it doesn't mean that you shouldn't be prepared, because complete improvisation, like anything else, is a skill. So you need to interview quite a few times, or to be able to pitch yourself successfully quite a few times before you feel confident enough to improvise with it. So I would say having that structure, but allowing yourself a little bit of room to say things the way they feel, or to be a little bit more natural in that moment, that also helps you to come across as more authentic when you're talking. Someone, unfortunately, I cannot see the name. Someone asked for some good examples. Actually, I wrote an article a while back on JobScan, where I shared, I believe, a couple, at least two or three complete examples, like a complete answer to a tell me about yourself question for a couple different scenarios. I don't have the link right now, unfortunately, but if you guys are interested, just message me on LinkedIn after this live stream, and I'll reply to you with the link to that article. I'll need to look for it myself, but I wrote it maybe a year ago or so for JobScan, so it should still be there. Great question from Nita. How do you recover in an interview if you know you answered question incorrectly? That's a good question. Actually, I have a video on my YouTube channel talking about, how to recover from interview gone bad or something like that. So again, you're welcome to check out my YouTube channel, subscribe, and there's a whole playlist on job interviews, and I'm adding new videos every single week. So there's one video that talks about that, and it's hard to recover from an incorrect or a bad answer, but trust me, it's possible. I've been there, and I know that a lot of you probably also have at least once encountered a situation like this. So that's when practicing is key, because when you come into an interview prepared and you've practiced enough, you know that whatever question comes your way, you can handle it. If you don't handle it perfectly, you can find a way around it. But basically, preparing this kind of a structural, the main content or the main highlights that sell you well, that when you have that so ingrained in your brain that you can, you'll know exactly what you need to talk about, and your job for the interview would only be to make sure that you lead the conversation to where you need it to go. And truth is that a lot of different scenarios, and that is very true for behavioral questions, for example, a lot of different scenarios can be listed in terms a few different ways. So it's up to you to know, hey, what are the things that sell me best, and how can I turn things around to make sure that I focus on those? So I hope that answers your question. Unfortunately, I wish we could go into like a lot more detail, but yeah, so I see that someone actually shared the link to that article. I think that's probably it. So Adi, thank you so much for finding that one. Yeah, so that one has a couple of examples. But again, like honestly, you guys, I know that examples are something that is really popular and people are always looking for scripts and examples, and it's a good reference point. It's a good starting point. But I hope that you know that you shouldn't copy everything the same way that it's in that example, because odds are that example was already borrowed from somewhere. And again, like I hope that one thing that we'll learn together today is that you don't need to sound like everyone else. You are unique and you are different, and the employer needs to know that. They want to know that. That's why that's what's going to get them excited to hire you over 10 other people. So we'll probably get to already start wrapping things up, but I'm not going to let you guys go without telling you how you can win a free LinkedIn profile from me. So there are a couple things that you need to do. So number one, you need to subscribe to my YouTube channel. If you're not subscribed, unfortunately, you will not be able to enter the contest. Number two, you need to watch my most recent video, and I'll drop a link. Unfortunately, I cannot do it from my laptop. I'll need to just look at my phone and drop the link in the comments. So my latest video on how to create an elevator speech for yourself for a job interview. So you need to go to that video. You need to like that video and comment with one thing that you learned from today's live stream, and also share a link to your LinkedIn profile. So it's very important that you share the link, because if I cannot see your LinkedIn profile, clearly I won't be able to review it. So I hope it makes sense. So I'll just drop the link in the comments right now. I wish I could do this from the laptop, but this platform unfortunately doesn't allow me to do that on LinkedIn. So I'll need to open the stream and look at myself the way you guys are looking at me, which is really weird. And drop the link in the comments. Okay. Okay, I just dropped it. It's the only comment from me, so it's very easy to find. I don't comment a lot on my own live streams and videos. So that's the video. Again, subscribe to my YouTube channel, like that video, comment under that video on YouTube with one takeaway that you learned from today, and a link to your LinkedIn profile. So I'll be choosing 2 lucky winners over the weekend. And again, one thing to keep in mind, you guys, that I'll do a public review. So I'll record a video reviewing your LinkedIn profile and giving you super practical tips and strategies to improve your LinkedIn profile. And that way we all can share and learn from that. Like I mentioned in the beginning, I think I already did one video like that. You can watch it on my YouTube channel as well. I think it's called Reviewing Real LinkedIn Profiles, and it's one of the most popular videos that I've ever made, precisely because of the fact that I'm reviewing real profiles. So no more theory. We're diving right into real practice and giving you super applicable insight that you can apply right away to your LinkedIn profile as well. So I'll take one last question, and then we'll be wrapping up. So, question from Rupinder: is it okay to ask for feedback at the end of the interview? So guys, one thing to remember, I know that it's tempting and I know that it's important to ask for feedback, but think of it from the employer's perspective. Some people are more, open-minded and kind of understanding and empathetic, so they might be willing to share some feedback. But most of the time, it's not the recruiter's or the hiring manager's job to tell you what you did wrong. And I know that kind of thing, it gives you closure because you want to know what it is that you did wrong. But most of the time, the employer is not going to give you that feedback, even if they wanted to. Let's say they had the time and the willingness and enough empathy to be able to do that. probably they will tell you something generic in order not to offend you, because what if you, God forbid, you go and sue them for something and interpret their words in the wrong way. So if you want to have real feedback on your interviewing skills and make the most out of, your self-presentation, I highly recommend to work with a coach on that. So it could be me, it could be someone else, doesn't matter. But as long as you understand that interview coaching is something that will set you up for success way more than just one interview that is tomorrow. It's something that will teach you to talk about yourself with confidence no matter the situation. So I highly recommend it. If you want some one-on-one help, please feel free to message me on LinkedIn or email me. My email is it's shown in my profile in my About section, and also I think down below. So it's very easy to find, or just message me directly on LinkedIn and let me know that you're looking for some one-on-one help. I'll be more than happy to help you nail that next job interview, because I know that those are not so easy to come around these days. Okay, well, thank you so much, guys, for joining today. Loved your questions and your comments. It was really cool to have you today. If you're not yet following me on LinkedIn, please do so. I post a ton of free content almost daily on here. And like I said, a lot of people have gotten jobs and have progressed in their career just by following that advice and then being kind enough to share those success stories with me afterwards. And I think that's amazing. And I would love for you to have that kind of daily dose of useful content as well. So follow me on LinkedIn, subscribe to my YouTube channel. Also, I do these live streams pretty regularly. It's been a while though, but now I'm kind of getting back on track and trying to do them every week or every 2 weeks. So that way you'll also stay tuned and know if there are any other upcoming live sessions. And if you are excited to get your profile reviewed, I'm excited to see your submissions and to do another awesome video reviewing your LinkedIn profiles and helping you build a truly successful LinkedIn presence. So thank you so much for joining today. I hope to hear you again soon, and please stay well.